Alright guys, what's going on? It's Fox DPS, and I wanted to kind of get back into doing reviews again. I did a few reviews at the very beginning of when we started YouTube, and I just wanted to get back into actually creating reviews for products that, especially starting out with products that not a lot of people have actually used. There are just not a lot of reviews for these products in general, right? And so the first product that I'm going to do a review on, as you can tell by the face cam here, it's not on my face, it is on my mouse pad. This is a little bit of an obscure product, and it took a lot of research to figure out more about this one. So we're going to share a little bit of that research and share what my experience has been on it. This is my first glass mousepad, guys. So this is a little bit of like an impression of glass in general. I'm not like the best player in the world. I'm like solidly in the middle with my gameplay and with how I can control a glass mousepad. So I'm just going to be 100% honest with that. I'm not a crazy gamer, but I like to practice and try my best. This is called the Glaceon. I'll spell it out. You'll see it in the title as well of the video. It's Glaceon. The Glaceon Glass Mousepad. And I think it's labeled as either XL or XXL, but I'm just going to define that. I would call it a large. I wouldn't call it an XL or an XXL. Definitely not XXL. I could look at the box to figure out, but you'll see in the title what the actual size is. It's a brand that no one really knows about, Glaceon or Glaceon or however you want to say it. So it took a lot of research for me to figure out what the deal with this pad is, because I have my own experience with it, and we'll talk about that. But of course, I wanted to look up some reviews and see what other people think about it. So what I came to the conclusion of in about 3 weeks of research is that essentially, from what I understand, this is a clone, maybe even a better clone, of the Razer Atlas. It's made on the same machine in the same factory. It's got the exact same dimensions, and that is 400 millimeters tall by 450 millimeters wide. So it's slightly wider than it is tall, as you can see. I think this is a clone of the Razer Atlas. I haven't used the Razer Atlas to absolutely confirm that, but based on what I'm reading about the Razer Atlas, when I actually look at the thing, it seems to be a clone. One way that it's better, though, is that this logo here, it actually exists under the glass, whereas the Razer, wherever they place it, I don't really know, but they placed the Razer symbol, from what I've read, on the top of the glass. Now, I don't know if they've changed that with recent models. Maybe they've kind of redesigned it a little bit, but when you have the logo on top of the glass, it creates a little bit of a texture, and normally that's fine if you're on some kind of cloth or hybrid cloth of a mouse pad, like a hybrid would be an example, would be like the Razer Strider or the Artisan Heian, which is my personal favorite mouse pad of all time, is the Artisan Heian. I think it's perfect, but that's a different review for a different day. When you have a fabric mouse pad or a hybrid mouse pad, the whole thing already has texture. So when you have the logo on top, it's just a part of that texture already. With a glass mouse pad, since it's so textureless and you don't get a whole lot of feedback on your mouse on most of these glass mouse pads, when you encounter texture, like for instance, if you have a piece of dust or a piece of hair on a cloth pad, no big deal. Trust me, they're there. On glass, dude, you notice. It's like you're driving down the road and all of a sudden there's a bunch of potholes and you start you start bouncing around. That's how obstructive it is, and it's wild. You have to experience it for yourself to understand. From what I've heard from other reviews, when you hit that logo on the Razer, it's very bumpy, and this is not there. It doesn't exist on the Glaceon. So, very long-winded, but that kind of explains a little bit of glass in general. So I wanted to elaborate on that. The fact is that glass mouse pads you have to clean regularly. However, All you need to do to clean a glass mouse pad is this. You grab a microfiber of some sort. It's totally dry when I'm about to play, or maybe sometimes mid-session if my dog comes in. I do this. And then sometimes I'll even take the mouse and swipe that. So I have tried this mouse pad on 2 different types of skates. I started first with PTFE, like the original skates on the mouse, just to see what it was like. It was butter smooth. However, it makes you notice even more with those bumps and textures on the pad. Like if you have a piece of hair or dust on it, for instance. And then I switched to something a little bit more controlled and slower, which has been amazing, by the way. The Obsidian Air Dots. You can see it in the camera there. These little purple dots. I put 6 on the mouse, 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. That did slow the mouse down a little bit and add a little bit of texture and graininess, but in a good way. I love it. But it's still pretty fast. I'm not a spinning expert, so that's my best, guys. All right, so let's dig into how it is on different types of games. All right. So for tracking-based games like Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, it's amazing. You'll get used to the mouse pad in like, it took me about 5-10 minutes, dude. It was fast. And so I was thinking, and I also Robot Quest, so that's kind of target switching and tracking. When I played these games, I adapted to the mouse pad in about 5 minutes. It was almost instant once I put especially when I put the new skates on. And it gave me this false impression that Glass was the most intuitive thing that I've ever used. I was wrong. And so now we go to the next category of games, which is actually my big project for the year, is to get somewhere on Valorant and Counter-Strike. Yeah, tac shooters. I'm going to go into the range soon, and you'll see, I'll demonstrate in the range what I'm talking about. It's essentially tracking versus like flicking and micro adjusting. That is where the difficulty comes in. This glass pad is very, very smooth. It is a very fast mouse pad. We'll be trying the Empress in a couple of days, if not by the end of the day today. At the very end of the month, about a month from now, we'll be getting the Glassworks Polarity. Those allegedly have more control. This is a very fast mouse pad. All right. Now, even though it's very smooth, it does have a very slight texture. If you look real close to the pad, you might even see in the camera how you have like a little bit of grainy refraction going on. That is because there's a slight texture. And it's hard to see with the eyes unless you use like a magnifying glass. Put your eyes really close to it or look in the camera. There's a bit of a refracting, almost like a sandiness. You can't feel it. It is actually smoother than window glass. Because window glass, it is technically smoother, but it's so smooth that your hands stick to it hard. You'll have that kind of like, if you're on clean glass, it has that bumpy, like, clunky feeling. This, you can almost not use a sleeve. I haven't devoted a lot of time to not using a sleeve because it just drags a little bit, and not in like a good way. It almost makes it more difficult to use. Okay, so let's go into the practice range really quick, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. All right, we'll pick like Jet or something like that, and just go to practice mode. Grab like a Ghost for this example, and maybe a Vandal, but okay. So for tracking, let's put the sleeve back on really quick. We're done talking about the sleeveless experience, and so we're not going to do it anymore. So for smooth tracking, it's very easy because it's a one-for-one experience. That is what I like about Glass. It will highlight, by the way, guys, anything wrong with your aim. So please make sure that before you switch to Glass, it is not cheap. please aim train on cloth first. And get good with that before you switch over. Don't switch to a glass pad as a beginning aimer. I highly don't recommend that. Then, when you get at least to an intermediate level on a cloth or hybrid, then consider picking up glass and watch a ton of reviews about the glass pad that you're trying to get. We'll get to the price of this one at the very end, and we'll decide if it's right for you. So the smoothness is great. And that's why I said that I had no trouble really like playing, say, Arc Raiders or Marvel Rivals. Kind of Overwatch, depending on the character. Robot Quest. Even target switching was not bad. The issue is micro adjusting and especially large flicks for me. So micro adjustments are okay, because it's just fingertip movements like that. I play a moderate sensitivity of 41.5 centimeters approximately. That's not bad. However, when I make big movements like this, all the way over here, I'll either over aim, over flick, like slightly past it. But the worst part about learning a glass pad, and it's extremely frustrating because it makes you feel like you're bad all of a sudden when you've been practicing for several years, is that when you get to your target, you don't notice it happening, but you might have had the perfect flick, and then this happens. And that's in slow-mo. So when I get there, let's exaggerate in real time. I get to my target and I go like that. The problem is that if I move my hand fast, the inertia of my hand trying to stop and the tension makes me bounce back a little bit, because there's nothing stopping my hand in terms of friction. That is going to require you to loosen your hand dramatically, and your shoulder, by the way. You need to lose the tension out of your hand, your wrist, forearm, bicep, and shoulder all at the same time, because something's going to try to take over. That tension can exist on a cloth because the cloth has its own friction and it'll help you stop. On glass, you're going to bounce back, and so you thought you got to the target, but then you did this when you got there. And then you bounced back, and you're like, well, I'm on the target. Why is it not dead? Why is it not? Why did I not hit it? Guys, it took me so much energy to figure out that that was what was happening. I had to research it, watch videos, watch my own VODs. I finally figured that out. If you lose the tension in your basically everything hand up, then you'll eventually be able to stop dead on a target. And that's not even perfect, but you'll get it. Way, way, way easier said than done, guys. For me, at least. Granted, I bodybuild. I have a lot of muscular tension in general compared to maybe the average person, and that might be a factor. But I wouldn't make any assumptions. I would assume that it's going to be the same for everyone else, because I don't want you guys to get frustrated with a peripheral just because you think that maybe, well, I don't bodybuild, so it'll be fine. Just let you know, there's a really good chance that that happens to you too. All right? Maybe it might be worse for people that don't work on muscle control in the gym. It might be worse. Okay, so yeah, target switching, flicks is very difficult. Tracking and target switching is moderately easy because whatever muscle memory you build up is going to reflect perfectly on this pad, guys. It's very smooth. Like I said, almost almost too smooth. Okay. Alright, let's go back to the... Alright. So overall, this mouse pad, let's do a stars out of 5 review. I've kind of been accustomed to that. But you can do the math if you prefer like 10-star reviews. We're going to do 5s. Overall, let's talk about the price first. So, the price of this mouse pad can vary. From what I've seen, you can obtain this mouse pad for somewhere between $60 and $70. At this price point, I do recommend it. However, there are several other budget mouse pads out there that you might check out first, depending on what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a nice smooth mouse pad, this has been really good for me at that price point. Now here's the caveat. When I went to Amazon to find this, which was not necessarily easy, and I can post that link in my description of the YouTube video, I saw that it was $130. That is the going rate on the market for a glass mouse pad. And if I'm being 100% honest, I think at that price point, there are glass mouse pad companies that have outstanding customer service. It's very hard to even find the customer service for this company. There are companies out there with better customer service, and have been doing this for much longer and are more experienced with making potentially better mouse pads. So, at the $130 price point, I do not recommend. However, if you can get this mouse pad for $60 or $70 and you want a reasonably priced fast glass mouse pad with little texture and little control, but more smoothness and speed, at that price point, it's perfect. It's just about perfect. $130 I can't necessarily recommend. But let's just assume that the price is $60 or $70. Overall, I'm going to give this mouse pad, let's say a 4.5 out of 5. At $130, I'm going to give it a 4.0. It's still a solid mouse pad at that price. I just feel like there are more options out there once you start approaching $130. Which is still good. 4.0 is good. 4.5 is excellent, and it's the 4.5 at the lower price point. So if you can find it, guys, at that low price point, potentially go out and cop this mouse pad. Go get it for yourself. Try it out. It's a good entry point. Hopefully this review was informative. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and like and subscribe below. And please comment any questions that you have for me, and I'll be answering them as long as you ask them.